Hi guys, welcome back. Welcome to another video. Today we're doing something which I find really exciting because we are going to be reviewing every single book I've read so far this year. Now, I don't read at a super fast pace. I usually read about like 5 books a month, and so this year so far I've read 15, and I don't really think that 5 books a month is enough to do like monthly wrap-ups, but I still want to have some kind of like place to talk about what I read and how much I read and what I think of the books. So I thought, why not do like a kind of a big wrap up of the first 3 months of the year. So it is now April. I am, I think, 4 books behind my reading challenge, so could be better, but we'll be fine. It'll all work out in the end, and I'm sure I'll catch up someday. Maybe not today, but at some point. But yeah, I thought we could do a little wrap up, so let's go through every single book that I've read so far this year. Okay, my first book of the year was a bit of a flop because I did actually rate this 2 stars, and that was an ebook that was Brutes by Diz Tate. Now, I picked this up because it was really cheap on Kindle, and I think Jamie read this and really enjoyed this. And so I was like, ooh, this sounds like a fun kind of like thrillery, literary fiction, kind of mystery vibes. Yeah, it was not for me. I think this kind of writing style is just not really to my liking. I just don't think it was personally for me. The book is about these group of friends, these children in a small town in America, very much like southern vibes, and someone goes missing, like a girl goes missing, and they know something about the disappearance of that girl, and they decide to keep quiet. And it's about how the entire town is kind of trying to find out what happened to this girl, and everyone's like involved, and these kids are just like in their group, just like being quiet about it, not telling anyone what happened. And as the reader, we kind of follow these girls, and we try to figure out what happened, what they know, what it is that they kind of decide not to speak about. But the thing is, the book is told from like a we perspective. Like, it's very much told from the we perspective, and it didn't vibe with me. I didn't like the writing at all. I felt really disconnected from the characters because I felt like I couldn't build any like personal bond with them. I didn't know anything about the characters. I cannot tell you a single character's name, anything about them. I have no idea what happened in this book, because it just felt really disconnected and really, honestly, kind of boring. I was honestly a bit bored while reading this. Another pet peeve that I have is that I don't really like reading about like miserable characters that just have negative thoughts the entire time, and a lot of this book felt like it was the embodiment of jealousy and like anger and just negativity. All of these girls were really like trying to be better than each other. They were all jealous of the other one's achievements, and I know that that is a really large experience of growing up as girls, is always wanting to be like the prettier girls and the cooler girls, but it just felt like there was so much negativity in this that was never resolved. So unfortunately, this was not for me. I gave this 2 stars. I wouldn't really recommend it unless what I told you about this book sounds like something you'd be interested in, but it wasn't for me. So yeah, a no from me. Then the second book I read, luckily, was a lot better, and that was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I finally managed to read this after everyone has been loving it, and I absolutely love the cover, and I also loved the book. I thought this was so fun. It really took me back to those YA fantasy days where we were kind of obsessed with like the pining for each other and the characters that are like falling in love and writing letters to each other, but they don't know that the other one, like who is behind those letters. It's so good. If you don't know what Divining Rivals is about, it is about these 2 main characters, and they both work or compete for the same position at a newspaper. They're both journalists, they both want to write for the same newspaper, and they're kind of competing for the same role. And they live in this fantasy world where there's currently like a war of gods happening, and a lot of their job is to write about the war. They end up going to war as war correspondents, and their life completely changes when they're on the front lines of this mythical war. And they find out that a lot of what they knew or thought they knew about the war is completely wrong. And the other part of the story is that they are actually writing letters to each other from their like enchanted typewriters, and they don't know the other person is the other person. So like she's writing letters to what she thinks is her brother, turns out someone else is receiving those letters, and it turns out to be her academic rival. And they send letters back and forth and really get to know each other and like really become close friends, while in real life they hate each other because they're like workplace rivals. They compete for the same job. So it is this wonderful story of how they're like hating each other on one side, and then also like really trusting each other and like liking each other on the other side. And it's super fun. The writing in this is gorgeous. The just like story and like development is gorgeous. It is quite a light fantasy. I wouldn't say it's too difficult to understand. I haven't read the second one yet, but I really want to, so hopefully I will get to, what is it, Ruthless Vows soon. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, I gave it 5 stars, obviously. If you couldn't tell from me like raving about it, I gave this 5 stars. This was my first 5-star of the year. Then I read a little palette cleanser, and that was the short story The Lover by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I really like Silvia Moreno Garcia. She's the author of Mexican Gothic, which is one of my favorite. What's the genre of Mexican Gothic? I have no idea. It's one of my favorite books. It's like a really weird story set in Mexico. And The Lover is basically kind of like a fairy tale. It reads very much like a fairy tale. And it is the story about this girl who really wants to find love, and she's really maltreated, like typical like fairy tale sister who gets nothing, who lives in the shadow of like her other siblings and everything. She meets up with this thief and they kind of fall in love, and it's very much like told like a fairy tale. I don't want to say too much about it because it is very short, so I feel like it is best if you go in blind. But it was kind of fun, it was good, but ultimately because it was only like 30-40 pages long, it didn't really have a lot of space to deliver, and it didn't really give me any like connection to the characters or connection to the world, or really I wasn't that invested in the story just because it was so short. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, but I can't really say I recommend it super much just because it felt kind of forgettable, but that's also just because it was like 40 pages long, so can we really blame it? I don't think so. Then I read the second book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and that was Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. I really enjoyed this. I actually liked this a lot. I heard a lot of bad things about the second book in the series. A lot of people found it a lot weaker than the first one. I have to say, I enjoyed it. I didn't mind it. I thought this was good. This is basically a continuation of Stalking Jack the Ripper, where Thomas and Audrey Rose go to Romania, where they go to a school for forensics and to learn everything about it. And it's super fun. I love like a boarding school setting, and I also love the Dracula retelling. This really gave me the same vibes that Dracula gave me. I read Dracula sometime last year, or maybe 2022. Yeah, 2022. And I really liked it, and this really gave me those same vibes. Basically, the story progresses that as soon as they arrive in Romania, these murders start happening that look like it's a vampire killing them, but obviously vampires don't exist. So all these murders start happening that look like it's vampires, and they have to figure out who it is that is going around and killing all these people. And yeah, it's super fun. It was really good. It's quite a big one, but I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4.5 stars. I think it was a really worthy continuation. It definitely made me fall in love with the characters again, like even more. And I really liked this. However, I do have to say, like, it did drag a little bit just because it was a bit longer, which is why I didn't get like 5 stars. But overall, like, I was entertained. I was getting my entertainment. It's all I wanted. Then I read another sequel, and that was Foxglove by Adeline Grace. Yeah, again, I read a lot of ebooks this year, so sorry for the constant ebook covers, but better than nothing, I guess. So Foxglove is the second book in the Belladonna universe, and we follow our main character. What's her name? If you don't know what Belladonna is about at all, we follow a girl who can kind of defeat death. Like, she is kind of untouchable for death. She just doesn't die. She's been in so many situations in her life where she was meant to die and she didn't. So it seems as if she's kind of untouchable for death, and she seems to have certain powers to kind of prevent death from happening. And as she is younger, she is kind of given around and around from one like foster home to another, from one family member to another. She lives in so many different families, and each time someone around her dies, and therefore she's like kicked out because she has this curse on her. She ends up with some cousins of hers, and she is determined to kind of save her reputation and to not mess it up one more time, but to stay in this family. And as she notices that like her cousin there is dying, she sets everything onto it to save her life and kind of redeem her reputation. So that's the plot of Belladonna. And then here in Foxglove, we kind of follow everything that follows the events of Belladonna. That was an awful sentence, forgive me. So Foxglove follows everything that happens after Belladonna. I can't really say too much about it, but I really like this. I give it 4.5 stars. I liked the tension and almost the like love triangle vibes in this. Again, it gave me really big like classic YA fantasy vibes with like an epic love story, and just like where you're really like pining for the characters to get together and you're really rooting for them. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I would highly recommend it if you're looking for a really fun and easy YA fantasy. Next, I read another ebook, and that was Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This one is, I think, Ali Hazelwood's first YA romance, and it's all about chess. So we follow this young girl who used to play a lot of chess and then stopped for some reasons, and now as an adult she's just getting back into it because a friend asks her to like fill in for a competition, and she kind of accidentally manages to win against one of the like top champions. And so she is thrust into this world of chess competitions and tournaments and kind of like climbing up the ranks of chess. And she obviously also meets someone who is the current champion, who she has just defeated as a little no-name chess player. And they obviously develop some feelings for each other, and I really enjoyed this. And the beginning I found it a bit like, just a little bit cringy and young and like very, very heavily YA, but I liked it. It improved, and I really, really actually enjoyed the romance in this. I found the male main character really cute, and he was like the typical like love interest. Like, I loved him. I had swoony feelings in my stomach for him. Like, I really enjoyed him. So yeah, if you're looking for just like a very simple, easy read, nothing too deep, very similar to The Queen's Gambit, if you enjoyed that, this is kind of just basically the same storyline, but super, super good, super fun. So if you're up for that, then yeah, classic Ali Hazelwood romance. Oh, and I gave this 4 stars overall. Next, I began my big Magnolia Parks reread, and I read Magnolia Parks and Dizzy Hate. I'm just gonna lump these together just because I think I can. I read them both in like really quick succession, so I'm just gonna talk about them both, or like kind of all 3, because I also read The Long Way Home just a little bit later. I love the Magnolia Park series. I think the writing's cringe. Is it the best written series? Absolutely not. It's definitely not that well written. But is it fun? Yeah. I really enjoyed my Magnolia Parks read. I had already read the first 2, so those were rereads for me. And then the third one, so The Long Way Home, I read for the first time. And I really enjoyed all of them. I think, honestly, on a reread, they were probably better because I was already kind of obsessed with the characters and I was into the world, and I didn't have to like figure out who everyone is at first, because it is a really large set of characters. But I really liked it upon a reread. I think the drama and the characters, like it's like Gossip Girl. It's super dramatic, it's super toxic, it's super unhealthy, but we love to read about it because the escapism is incredible. I'm excited to read the next one. I've got the second Daisy Hates book up next. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I gave Magnolia Park's 4.5 stars. Daisy Hates actually improved. I think it went from a 3-star to like a 3.5, 4-star this time. And then I gave Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home 4 stars overall. So, you know, overall somewhere in the like 3.5, 4-star region. Then I read Same Time Next Year by Tessa Bailey. You've already heard me speak about this, but this was just a smutty novella. That's all it is. It is about the main character, Britta, whose brother is on like a sports team, a hockey team, and one of the guys on his team needs a visa for the US really badly, and so she ends up marrying that guy for the visa, just for the green card, and they end up having this pretend marriage, and they obviously need to like get to know each other for the visa interview. It's this full story of like fake dating, but he also has a massive crush on her, but she's kind of like against dating. She doesn't really do relationships, and that is where I think I had my biggest issue in the book. It's because I hate it. It's such a pet peeve of mine when characters in books try to convince someone else to be in a relationship when that person doesn't want to be in a relationship, because I think that's the wrong approach. Like, you're never going to have a happy relationship if you're trying to convince someone to date you who doesn't want to be in any relationship, not just with you, just in any. And I think that's what I didn't like about this book, because it really felt like he was trying to convince her that he was such a great guy and it was so worth it and she would love it to be in a relationship with him. But I'm like, this girl told you explicitly that she didn't want to date, so why are you forcing her to be in a relationship? Like, why are you trying to convince her? Yeah, I don't know. It was also just really smutty, and I read it on a public train. Probably not my best idea. I should have thought about it and chosen something else to read. But ultimately, you know, if you're reading a Tessa Bailey, you probably know what you're getting yourself in. It just wasn't necessarily for me, and I gave this 2.5 stars. Then I read the amazing and wonderful Notes on Heartbreak by Annie Lord. You've heard me speak about this if you watch my reading vlog. I loved this. This was my second 5-star book of the year, and I was just obsessed with this. This is a non-fiction story about Annie Lord's like major heartbreak and everything that kind of happens from the moment of her breakup onwards. She just goes through her entire life and all of her like coping mechanisms and things she does after the breakup. So we follow her like literally from the moment of the breakup through all that happens next, like all the rebounds, all the getting back together with exes, all the drinking, all the crying, all the thoughts and overthinking, and am I good enough? Like, why did this person not want to be with me? And so on and so forth. So it's incredibly beautiful. I had so many wonderful like quotes that I highlighted. It was just an incredible book, and I really, really, really liked it. And it's very much like both the story of everything that happens, but it's also filled with the most beautiful like metaphors and thoughts and philosophies about being single, breaking up, what a relationship should be like, and so on and so forth. And it was just beautiful. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I would highly recommend this to anyone. If you had a major heartbreak in the last like year or so, and you're feeling a bit lost and you're trying to navigate single life, read this book. Read this. Next, I read Rouge by Mona Awad. This is Mona Awad's newest book, and I actually read this for a book club that I'm in. So yeah, that was a book club pick for March, and I enjoyed this. I'm actually gonna say I enjoyed this way more than I expected, because I'm not really a Mona Awad fan. I haven't read Bunny, and I didn't really like her other book, All's Well. I read it. It wasn't for me. Again, it's that pet peeve where I don't really like reading about very miserable main characters that are like have a lot of envy and like jealousy in them. And I think that was really, really difficult in All's Well, because the main character, she had a lot of angry thoughts, let's just say it like that. This though, I really enjoyed. This is basically a critique of the beauty industry, and especially the like skincare industry, and it's a really, really, really weird and creepy story about like a mysterious spa. So our main character Belle, her mother recently passed away, and she goes back to California to kind of sort out her mother's affairs, sort out the house, everything. And she ends up stumbling upon this spa that her mother used to go to, where they do very weird treatments. And she goes and has some free treatments because they offer her treatments for free. And so she's like, oh, well, if you're going to offer it to me for free, I'll do it. So she goes there, gets treatment, and the treatment is not a usual one, but instead she kind of loses memories and like her like ability to speak and form words. Like she really just ends up losing her intelligence and memories and everything that's in her brain for beauty. And it's incredibly weird, it's incredibly strange, but so well done. And there's a lot of really like underlying tones of racism, of beauty standards, of like Western beauty ideals. There's also a lot of like family trauma in here, because a lot of Belle's own struggles have been inherited from her mother, because her mother had a lot of like issues with self-worth and confidence and not feeling beautiful enough. And now Belle has kind of inherited all of these issues, except worse, because she also feels like she doesn't adhere to like Western beauty standards because she is part Egyptian. So yeah, I really like this. I think it was probably my favorite of Mona Award's books that I've read so far, and it was good. It exceeded my expectations. I wasn't expecting to like it, again, because it's Mona Award and I'm not her biggest fan, but this one I liked. I would recommend this one. I gave this 4 stars overall. Then, because Notes on Heartbreak left me in such a mood for non-fiction, I picked up Dear Dolly by Dolly Alderton, my literal love of my life, the big sister I never had. And as you can see, I loved this book. I really, really, really became obsessed with it and her writing again. This is basically just a collection of her advice column in the Sunday Times style. So it's just kind of her collecting all of these different columns that she's written over the years in one book. And I really enjoyed this. There were definitely some questions that didn't apply to me. Like some of them I was like, oh, I probably wouldn't need to read this, but all of them had beautiful insights, and especially the ones about like relationships and friendships I really just resonated with, and I really saw a lot of my own issues in the questions that were sent into the column. And the way she answers them is just beautiful. Like I just think she's incredibly intelligent and just puts things into words so beautifully in a way that I feel like is not done enough. Like a lot of the things that she writes about are not like, they're not like incredibly new insights. It's not like she's really like inventing something new, but she's putting it into words in such a concise and beautiful way that just makes sense. I love that. And there's so many good quotes in this. Like I could flip through this all day long and just like read the quotes and be like, yeah, I agree. Next, I read The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. This is yet another romance. I'm just on a romance kick at the moment. I don't know, don't judge me. I love romances. So this is a book about these 3 women who all get ghosted by the same guy on Valentine's Day. We follow them all kind of dating the same guy, and he is definitely hiding something. Like he has ghosted all of them on Valentine's Day. He is absolutely hiding something from them, and we follow kind of like each of their relationship with this guy. And I don't know how this man manages to juggle 3 women, but you know, apparently he does it somehow. And it's just a really fun romance, while at the same time being kind of heart-wrenching, because obviously since it's 3 girls who are dating the same guy, we can't really have the classic happy ending. Like there's not really like all 3 of them are going to end up with the guy. Like something some of them have to have another ending. So I found it a really unique romance, because usually when we get a romance novel, we know that the female main character is going to end up with the love interest in the end. Well, in this one, it was kind of like a figuring out, like, okay, what is going to happen and which one of them, if any of them, are going to end up with him. Sorry if you hear sirens in the background. That's an ambulance, I think. But yeah, this was a really good romance. I really enjoyed this. I think it was unique. I think it was really kind of like a really fun concept. Not the best writing I've ever seen, but like I quite enjoy Beth O'Leary's romances just because they always have like a really fun twist or a really fun, unique thing about them. There was also, I don't think, any smut in this. If it was, then it was very light. So if any of you are like closed door romance girlies, this is definitely a good choice because it was very, very, very light on the smut. So yeah, would recommend. And last but not least, the last book I read so far this year was another Dolly Alderton, and it was Good Material by Dolly Alderton. I picked this up because after reading Dear Dolly, I just couldn't get enough of it and I wanted more Dolly Alderton, and so I thought, you know what, I'll just read her newest book. I'll just catch up on the Dolly Alderton and read her newest book. Unfortunately, I didn't love this. I gave this 3.5 stars. It just wasn't for me. I think I prefer Dolly Alderton when she writes from like a female perspective, and this is her first time like writing from a guy's perspective, and I don't doubt that she did really well. Like it felt a realistic portrayal of like a guy's brain. I just think I don't like being in a guy's brain. I found it so infuriating, so frustrating, because the man in here, he has nothing going for him. He just got broken up with. His comedy career is failing. He's living in London and can't really afford to live in London. His friend group is really toxic and really not that great. And he's also just not the best, like, emotionally intelligent guy. Like, I can't even say that his character speaks for him, because it doesn't. And instead of, like, channeling his breakup into forming closer friendships or working on his career and writing better comedy or something, he's just kind of trying to get back with his ex-girlfriend who told him that she doesn't want to be with him. And I'm like, mate, this isn't it. And I read a lot of the reviews for this, and a lot of them said that like the first 250 pages of this are absolutely miserable, and then he redeems himself in like the last 50 pages, and I agree. But I don't think I have to sit through 250 pages of absolutely miserable self-wallowing and like self-pity, essentially. I don't have to sit through that. In the end, there's also a chapter, like a singular chapter from the ex-girlfriend, and that singular chapter was better than the entire rest of the book, and I just wish that the entire book was written from the woman's perspective, because it would have been so much better. But instead we got a man with a dead comedy career, a dead relationship, not great friendships. I don't know, it was just, I see what Dolly Alderton did with it, and I do think that maybe for some people this delivered. It was just that for me, I was expecting something really different, and I didn't get any of her like beautiful insights and inspirational like life lessons that she herself usually puts in her other books. In this one, it was just things not to do after a breakup, essentially. And like watching a guy do all of the things that you shouldn't do after a breakup, and just a lot of secondhand embarrassment, a lot of like really cringy moments that like I cringed while reading, because I was like, this is not fun to read about. And even in a book about like a breakup, I still want to have some fun reading it, and I just didn't have that with Good Material. So I don't know, maybe it's for someone else, but I personally gave this 3.5 stars. Not for me. And there we have it. Those are all the books that I've read so far this year, all 15. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about the books. Sorry if it was a bit chaotic. I just kind of sat down and started filming without really thinking about what I was going to say about the books. So I'm so sorry if this was slightly chaotic. I'm still trying to get into like a routine of like how much I need to kind of think about the video script and so on, and how much I can just say in the moment. So we're still figuring it out. I hope you enjoyed nonetheless, and hopefully I will see you soon for another video. I'm gonna try and film a lot this week because I'm home this week. I'm not traveling for once. So I'm gonna try and do some more reading vlogs, some more bookish content. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye!